Welcome back to episode 4 of Running with the Wolves. I'm Christian and this is Dustin. We are here to bring you everything to do in the running world, all the way from high school track and field, for all the way to the UTMB races for ultramarathon running. So we'll get right into it. Today our guest is Tyler Fisher, D1 varsity runner at the University of Cornell. We'll be discussing his cross-country season, future cross-country prospects, just kind of how the sport's going this year, and what teams look to take what, and just basically how he's doing in the sport. And then we'll slowly change over just to do a quick recap of the Berlin Marathon and to see how the three greats went at it, what went wrong, what went right, and to just kind of recap how the race went all together. So with that said, give a warm welcome to our guest, Tyler Fisher.
Hey, Tyler. So, being from Florida, how has the adjustment been to running in basically Canada?
Well, it was actually a really, really big adjustment at first. So obviously the weather was a really big adjustment. You go from it being the majority of your cross country and track seasons, 80 to 100 degrees, basically the whole time, to when I first got up here my freshman year, even in August, it was about 75, and it made stuff a lot easier, made workouts a lot easier, and just running in general a lot easier. Towards the winter, it gets a bit tougher because we're running indoors a lot more because, it gets into the negatives some days, it's just real cold, hard to run sometimes, got to stick to the roads. And outside of that, the weather's been pretty nice, though. It's been pretty favorable for running. It makes for really great racing. The biggest adjustment, though, probably coming from Florida, as you guys might know, the hills.
Yeah.
All of our trails, they go through just some real hilly territory, and I think that was actually one of the biggest things that contributed to me getting injured my freshman year, because my hip strength just was not on par to be doing the mileage I was doing with adding the hills into it. So that was a huge adjustment, but I think I've done pretty well with acclimating to that at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let's get into this because this is obvious. If anyone's seen any of your high school races from your senior year and any 3200, how do you pull that finishing kick out of yourself?
I've said it before, I don't consider myself to be a guy who's quick on my feet. So when it comes to the end of a race, all I want to do is win.
Yeah.
So I'll just really try and put myself in a position to do that. I'll draft off someone, stay on their shoulder, or just stay with people when they make moves up until that last 800 or K, and then just take off with everything I've got. Because I feel like if I make a move and if someone catches back up to me, I feel like that's going to be it. That hasn't happened before, but I feel like I don't have the foot speed to hold people off. So the dead sprint is just what I do because I always feel like I'm going to lose.
Yeah. Well, if anyone saw your senior year race at UF, you closed your last 800 in 2:02. You went 9:15, but you closed your last 800 in 2:02, and your last 400 in 59. And I know you've told me your PR from your senior year was 56.5, and you closed in 59. So with 250 to go, or 800 to go, I guess, walk me through what happened that year at UF.
Okay, so, just the majority of the race was, it was myself, Nick Diaz, and Noah Perkins, actually, who had a really big senior year after that and is, doing pretty decent now. So those two were leading most of the race, and I was kind of just, staying right on their shoulder, staying tucked in, right on the outside of the first lane, and we get to about 1,200 to go, and Diaz, he tries to make a move, and I respond to that. We end up dropping Noah, and kind of the rest of the group was already a bit off at that point. So it was basically me and Diaz at that point. And so I respond to his move. We come around with about 800 to go. He tries to move again, and instead of just responding that time, I just took off. With probably like 700 to go, I just went into basically like a dead sprint, and from that point it was just, he's going to catch me if I start running any slower.
Yeah.
So I just gave it everything I had for, the 2 minutes and change that it took to get there, basically. Then, you were there. I collapsed at the finish line and needed help off the track.
Yeah. I think I actually helped you off the track.
You've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Christian, go ahead and hop in, whatever you want to ask.
Oh no, I remember because my seasons were rough in high school, especially my senior one since I didn't get to run it. But I'll never forget my first state race was the 4x8 my junior year, and I'll never forget that because I stood up to what I thought was a 30-year-old man, and is just big monstrous dude from like the depths of Miami, and I'll just never forget it. And he took off, and I chased after him, and that was a mistake because he was like a 400, 800 guy, and I'm like a 2-mile 800 guy, and went out the first lap in like 54, and I was like, oh, I'm screwed. And I'll never forget that because I closed it pretty decently. I tied my PR and stuff, but I'll never forget I came across the finish line. I couldn't feel my knees down. Like I remember like Dustin's like screaming at me to get off the track. I think Dustin's there for everybody when they fall and collapse. Dustin seems to find a place to be, but yeah, it's rough. But on the bright side, I mean, like you learn from that and you learn how to take the pain and stuff, which is good because it's going to lead me to my next question for you. Going from that awesome season running that 9:15 into the 2-mile, what's it like going to be a freshman at college? Where you're running against guys who are like doing 9:15s and time trials for practices and stuff.
Well, it's funny that you asked that because like Dustin will probably know what I'm talking about here. You might as well. So I don't know if you were at the state race yourself. I know Dustin was.
He was there.
Okay, so you were both there. I talked to Dustin a lot beforehand about it because he was kind of betting on me to win. And I thought I was going to too. And if everything went to plan, I think I still would have. I ended up getting really sick that day. I had the flu. Things did not go to plan. And from that day forward, I kind of took the energy that I put into being a state champion in high school into my first season in college. So I attacked every workout in the summer, every distance run, and I just went full force, into everything, did all the little things. And, I get to college, I arrived that first day for our first workout, and, I'm looking really good. I was our top freshman by a long shot, and I was on a very like upperclassman heavy team, very good juniors, very good seniors. I was the only person out of the freshman and sophomore class to make the Ivy League championship team that year. And the full season was just a real long grind, but in my head, it was me redeeming myself for what happened that day. I felt like I let a lot of people down that day because there were a lot of people that followed me the whole year, my whole 4 years in high school. So it meant a lot to me to be able to go in my first season and hang on to those, like you were saying, those guys that throw down 9:15s in workouts. I mean, I had some really, really good kids on my team my freshman year. We have a kid who's, he's pro now. He's run like 13:35. He was on my team. Had 2 sub-4 milers that were on my team. Had a kid that ran 29, like 08 in the 10K. We had a very good team. And to be able to run with some of those guys in like races and whatnot was awesome. I ran, I think, a 25:12 my freshman year for my 8K PR. Unfortunately, the end of my freshman year cross season resulted in breaking my femur because I pushed so hard every single day to get where I wanted to be and to make up for what I thought I deserved. And it was a tough way to end it, but looking back, it was a really good learning experience, and just overall, I think it was a really good experience in general.
Yeah, and so bridging from that, and actually back to Christian's point before anything, that freshman, that big giant black kid from the depths of Miami that Christian chased down, guys, in case you didn't know, was Deshae Fernandez, who runs 153 low, 152 high, maybe 151 high. We'll see what he does this year, probably 150. But yeah, that kid Christian chased down was a freshman, Deshae Fernandez.
He was like 6'2" and 170 pounds, and I'm like 5'8" at the time and like 130 pounds. And I thought this man was in the wrong section at the wrong heat, not even supposed to be at the high school state meet. I tried talking to him too, and he just was like, and I was like, that makes me feel comfortable. But it's kind of cool because your state athletes are just so much different. And I'm sure when you get to like nationals and stuff for college, that's even crazier, man. Everybody's like fine-tuned there, Everybody's ready.
Stuff's pretty wild, yeah.
Yeah. So now to bridge to another topic, Tyler, what are your goals for this year with Cornell as a team and individually?
Well, I guess to start off with the team goals, I don't really think it's too much of a secret. We're in the Ivy League. I don't know if you know, like the Ivy League's pretty competitive athletically, within, and as far as the distance events goes, we're typically like pretty competitive at the national level as well. So as a team, we're looking for a triple crown: cross country championship, indoor outdoor championship, and Ivy League. And as a team in cross, we're looking to go to nationals. It's a pretty big goal for us. We think, we got real close. My freshman year, we were a little bit further off last year. We've kind of been on the bubble the past few years in our region, so we're looking to make that push this year, and I think we've got the team to do it. Individually, as far as cross country goes, I'm just looking to run, a decent time, somewhere in the low 24s, hopefully. But I mean, as far as that goes, that's not my biggest concern necessarily. I just, I want to be a positive contributor to my team inside my team's top 5, and help us make that big push to, the regional national meet and the Ivy League championship. As far as track goes, I'm looking to run, 3K, 5K indoor, hopefully some low 8s, 3K, real low 14s, 5K, and then outdoor, hopefully some real low 29s for the 10K, and, hopefully a good regional appearance in that race.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will be wondering, what's so different about college workouts from high school workouts from your perspective? I'll give mine after, obviously. I'm running in college as well. But what's your perspective difference from high school to college workouts?
Well, most high school workouts I found, obviously the volume was lower. The repetitions were normally shorter length. And often there was more rest as well. Mm-hmm. Just in my personal experience, I also believe something I've been struggling with a bit in college. In high school, it wasn't as much of an issue for me to go all out every day because I wasn't running quite as much.
Yeah.
So it didn't put the impact on my body that it does now. So I have to find it's very tough to find a balance with that, but I think I'm doing a much better job of that now. And just as far as college goes, just longer repeats, less rest, much faster, and I mean, obviously, just geared towards a different race. It's Now it's geared towards 8K, 10K as opposed to 5K, 3,200 in high school.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely, in my short-lived experience as of right now that I've had, the mileage on my daily runs has not gone up a lot. My coach has done, Brian Beal, he's done a great job of managing that. But workout days are usually the highest volume days. They're almost the long run high volume days because the warm up and cool down are so long, and like you said, it's geared for a 10K. We're geared for running at regions to get to nationals. In our case, I don't know how much it is for you. And on just easy days, with his philosophy, it's more quality over quantity. He's not a super high mileage type guy. If you're not going to get a quality run in, if you're going to be running slow just to get your mileage in, he figures get quality over quantity any day. So every day is supposed to be treated as such with quality. Progression runs, from my experience in college, are a big thing. Progressing on your runs every mile and getting the most out of every run. Because obviously we're busy as college students, so at 6:30 in the morning, you're not going to have a lot of time in the second part of the day to get a second run in. So get out what you can in the morning is kind of what I've gotten out of it. So yeah, the mileage isn't a whole lot different, I think, besides the workouts. Because the workouts will actually, obviously for you, it's different. You're in a different program, and I know you told me you're averaging like 13 miles a day some weeks, so all in one run, half marathon every day. So I guess it's a balance and it's a difference of philosophy, but I think it's still, regardless, different from high school. And like you said, the rests are a lot shorter. Mile repeats in high school were like 5-minute rest. I got here and the coach was like, "Yeah, we got 1 minute rest," and I'm just like,
"Yep."
We have what?" But that's been the biggest adjustment for me. And Christian, I'm sure you, being on a triathlon team last year, have experienced the same thing volume-wise.
Yeah, it was like my first real track practice. We had a swim in the morning, and it was like a 3,200 meter swim. And he's like, "All right, we're gonna show up to the track tonight." And I was like, "Okay, no problem." And I was thinking I was gonna be one of the fastest track guys out there because I was one of the only ones in the background, and I was still doing it religiously. And he said, "All right, we're going to do 2 by 1 mile, 2 by 1,200, 2 by 1,000, 2 by 800, 2 by 600, 2 by 400. 5 minutes in between, but each one should be all out." And I was like, okay. I said, well, if they will hit a pace or something, I said, because no one's going to survive after the 2 by 1 mile. And Tomas from France went 4:57 for the first one, 4:58 for the second one. And it was gassing. It was just, it hurt. It hurt so much, especially being from Florida too. I've moved like 15, 16 times, something like that in my life. But I stayed my last 3 years in Florida, and that was rough transitioning to those 20-degree climates, living in the mountains and running a mile repeat in the morning. It was hard, but it's good though because it pushes you to a new level. Like being in the pool and stuff, it's like you're sprinting the whole time. And I was in the pool and we did a 300 meter warm up. I'm like, okay, so we get a 1 minute rest now. He's like, you get 15 seconds of rest. And I was like, okay, well maybe that's because it's the warm up. And then literally everything after that was like 15 seconds of rest. And there's some days here where we'd hit 7,200 meters in the pool, and that's like, well over 150 laps, and it's just like 15 seconds rest and you keep going. But it's good though because you're producing star-studded athletes that way. We've got like so many kids on the team who are running in crazy time. Tomas has never ran a track race as an athlete in his life, but he dropped like close to a sub 15 in his 5K for the first time on an indoor track, and it was the first time he ever run one. So but that's what you got to do. So it's the workouts get more intense, but it's really to push you more mentally than anything to hit those time in the races. So
yeah, for sure. All right, so Tyler, hopping on to the next subject, Berlin Marathon. I know you watched it as well as the two of us did. All of us.
We should clarify something real fast. Me and Dustin were seated to watch this, and Dustin went and had a fun night and fell asleep 15 minutes into the marathon on me. To be fair, I fell asleep a little bit later, but to be fair, the marathon was at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was hard to watch anyway. But anyway, go ahead, Dustin.
Well, so Eliud Kipchoge, obviously breaking 2, ran 2 flat in 25 seconds, pretty close to breaking 2 hours. Squared off with Wilson Kipsang of Kenya. Quite an old athlete. He's 36 years old, but he did get quite a late start to his career at age 25. So he's been around some time, but he's pretty old, but his legs have not been worn out as long as someone like Kipchoge. And Kenenisa Bekele, who's been running, since the late 90s and now almost into 2020 now. And the three of them wanted to square off and set a marathon world record in Berlin, and conditions obviously didn't allow for a super fast time with all the water on the roads and everyone. But what was your guys' take on the race with Kipchoge pulling away like that and the two others dropping out halfway?
I personally thought it was pretty interesting. Because, obviously going into the race, who was it? Bekele, Kipchoge, and Kipsang. They were obviously like the big three, as the announcers called them. They were the huge favorites. And you have Bekele fall off. I can't remember how far in it was. I think it was like
15K in or something like
15
that.
15 or 20K. Yeah, he started to fall back, and even the commentators, they were relatively surprised. They were like, oh well, he'll still be in it, but then he just kept drifting further and further back, and he just never came back. So that was very interesting to see. And then Kipsang, that was a very interesting situation. I don't really know if anything further was said about what happened there, but he looked super smooth up until I can't remember. I think it was almost 30K, and then he just dropped out of nowhere, and that was very strange. I think the biggest story of the day, though, was definitely outside of Kipchoge running phenomenally and running, I think, was it 35 seconds off the world record?
Yeah.
He's pretty close, right? Yeah. Was it Adola, the second place?
Yeah, the Ethiopian. Yep. Adola.
Yeah, he's a rookie, right? That was his first marathon.
Yeah.
And he ran, I think he was 14 seconds behind Kipchoge and less than a minute off of the world record. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Watching that race, I think was, I think out of, for me, even growing up in high school, the marathon was always super special for me to watch because it's unlike any other, running event out there. And, I think the one thing that kind of upset it, and Kimetto came on afterwards, the current world record holder, you can have really bad climate and weather in a track and field race. Obviously, London was super hot, they said, but look at Mo Farah. He still dropped a 26:49 in his 10K. So that, at those distances, you can still produce a fast time, even if it's going to hurt a little bit more. But the marathon, you really do depend on, what your weather is going to be like. And they thought it was going to be a beautiful day, but it started downpouring, and they said 2 miles into the race, they're not squinting because they're in pain. They're squinting because rain's coming off their eyes. And on top of that, they said it was super foggy, and that it's a form of humidity and just all that condensation, and which made it so much harder. And people can say, well, it sucks that Kipchoge didn't run a world record, but he still ran 35 seconds off with nobody to push him and with just absolutely terrible weather conditions. And that man, I think, going into the race for me was gonna win from the start because he's got a mental state, and when he tried going for that breaking 2, they put Tedesse and Lelisa DeCisa up there, and they said the same thing. The Nike guy said, I can quantify everything, my shoes, the weather, the place, everything, but I can't quantify this big gap for mental strength and toughness. Mm-hmm. When they talk to Kipchoge, multi-millionaire this guy is, and he walks 2 miles every day to get a bucket of water. And it's for him, it's I live a monastic lifestyle, I live a low-profile lifestyle because when it comes to it, I do myself. And he goes, I don't need money, I don't need things, I just need hard work. And he's going to break it for sure, and no doubt in my mind. They're going to put him on a fast course, and if they do the breaking 2 again, they're going to send him right up there, and he's going to go for it. So I don't think it was a big shock that he won. It kind of sucked not to watch a world record, but to watch him do what he did in the conditions that had happened was amazing. And then, of course, Adola, that was awesome. That just goes to show right there, marathon running, you don't know what can happen. Watching Rio, I thought Rupp was great, but he was still a 2:11 guy. I was like, this guy's not going to stack up in the marathon. But boom, he lives in the USA, so we're used to all the conditions and stuff, different climates, and he gets a bronze medal. So that's the beauty about marathon running is like you never know what's going to happen. And I think that was the beauty of watching the Berlin Marathon. Your two top guys dropped off relatively early, and boom, you got a rookie in his first marathon coming out of nowhere, sneaking a second place. So, that's pretty awesome.
And then we have, beyond the Berlin Marathon, Dennis Kimetto came out 30 minutes after the race. And he actually is finally not injured again. And he's been training with Mutai from Botswana.
Yeah, the old marathoner.
Kimetto is coming back and racing Chicago next month and trying to lower his world record again.
Yeah, that'll be a good race because we've also got Zernase Tedesse in there. His breaking two was a little bit more interesting because his record in the marathon was like 2 hours and like 12 minutes. It was nothing great. And when they figured out a 2:12 guy, but his half marathon was a world record, like 58 minutes, they found out he wasn't drinking liquid for the whole marathon. Like, he would not touch a bottle of water. And they said, yo, for this breaking two, like, you're going to need some liquid. And in the interview on that they did the documentary on, it shows him there, yeah, I think I could use some liquid. I think it's dehydration. Well, no joke. So it'll be interesting to watch Kimetto. I don't discourage any athlete in this sport because, it's a sport of pushing each other and helping your teammates out. With that said, Kimetto, it'll be interesting to see if he breaks his world record because after he broke the world record, his racing after that was like 12th and 15th places. He wasn't even breaking into the single digits. Mm-hmm. So if it's injury that's holding him back, let's hope that he can come back and really make an impact, maybe push Kipchoge a run for his money. If not, it'll be interesting. If nothing, hopefully he'll give us a good race. But I think for Chicago at least, Zernase Tedesse is going to take that one, especially having the experience of half marathon world record holder and that breaking two. I think he's going to come back strong.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like all of his times, having them pulled up here, Kimetto he's similar to Kipchoge, actually, if you think about it. He was more of a 10K guy than Kipchoge ever was, who was obviously a 5K guy, ran 12:43 outdoor, and now has transitioned to a marathon pretty well. But Kimetto ran 28:30 in the 10K, which is great, but that's not anything close to what Eliud Kipchoge has run. But when you get up to his half marathon, he's run 59:14, nothing Eliud Kipchoge hasn't done, and he's run 2:02:57. I think he's got a lot more strength than Eliud Kipchoge does, in my opinion. It's got more strength, but I think Kipchoge is definitely more consistent. But what I think from Kimetto, what we will get is a healthy Kimetto going out the first 20 kilometers, hopefully on world record pace, and if there's someone with him, I think he's got a shot. If he's alone, I don't think he's going to hold through the second half. I really don't.
Well, I think Tedesse will go with him for sure. I think Zernase will want to take that win. So if Kimetto goes out hard, Zernase will. And the thing about Zernase that I think people really, and they said this in the documentary, and I kind of said this before we were even watching the 2-hour marathon, the sub 2. I said, this is a guy who runs a crazy sub 27. Wins crazy races, but when he was in his heyday, he was running against Haile Gebrselassie, Kenenisa Bekele, Kipchoge in his prime. So this guy never had a break. He was running from like literally legend to legend to legend. And the crazy thing about Tedesse that most people don't realize, he's a 5'3" guy, 121 pounds, but he was a cyclist before he was a runner. Like he was like a full-on trying to be a professional cycler. And as a small guy like that, you can imagine like the smaller you are.
The less power you got.
Exactly. So it's to watch that guy transition and have the career he's had to go on to run like a 58:13 and a half marathon and then break his own world record. Like, that guy, I mean, he's only going to keep getting better at the marathon, in my opinion. Now, he is a little bit older, but I think he's going to be the next big guy, and he could even put Kipchoge up to run for his money, in the sense of marathon running. So it'll be interesting between them and Kimetto.
And now that we've seen talked about the other breaking two guys, and we've talked about Dennis Kimetto, what do you expect from Lelisa DeCisa in the future, who ran 2:12 in breaking two? He obviously went out really hard and died, and he ran 2:12. What are you expecting from him in the future? He has won Boston a few times and has won some big races.
You want to take this one, Tyler, first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like you said, he didn't really have like two strong of a performance in breaking 2. Not really sure like why that was, but I mean, I would say probably have a strong comeback and at least drop some, like sub 205 to 206 times. I don't necessarily see him going world record pace or being quite up there with those top guys, but I mean, just like with Adola, like never count anyone out in the marathon, I guess. You never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
With that said, I know people are going to think to me like this is crazy, but most people don't like watching the marathon, let alone a documentary on a marathon. But the new National Geographic documentary, highly recommend for anybody watching this if they made it this far to watch it. It's not a usual documentary. It is a project that took hundreds of people to get right. And the thing is, to say about Lalisa that I take back about saying it before, he's super young compared to the other two. He's really young.
He's like 25.
Yeah, exactly. When they were doing all the tests in his hometown and stuff, they said you have Tedeschi right in the middle. They had some things to work on here, some things, hydration, but generally an experienced runner. Just work on form of hair. When they got to Kipchoge, they said literally perfect runner. We couldn't even nail it down just a few centimeters of quantification. This dude ate perfectly. His form was perfect. Looked comfortable the whole race. I mean, that guy's and they said it made it hard for him because they didn't know what they could fix. And then they said when they got to Lalisa, they said, oh my God, this guy is a whole bunch of how he runs the way he does and gets medals. We have no idea. They said he had a CO2 intake of 20.5 and he needed to be at 21.5 to just be on world record pace. Because I found it interesting that they took him on as a runner for this breaking 2. I thought they would have taken somebody like Kipsang or Kimetto. And they said he's a young guy. He's only 25. He's got a buttload of racing ahead of him. He's predominantly road unlike the other two. And there's a lot of things he can still work on as a professional. They said they were working on his form, his relaxation, and for going out as hard as he did, he almost made it to the half marathon with them and stuff. And he kind of died, but he kept going, he kept pushing, and so I mean that he's got the spirit for it, and I think he just needs some more experience before I start making judgments. But yeah, based on his time and stuff, I don't see him going world record anytime soon. But I think once he gets some more under his belt, some more racing, that guy could be a world. We never know. He could be a real force to reckon with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then so high school from this past weekend. There were some real fast high school times dropped. Jacob McLeod and the other kid from Milton, Georgia, I'm sorry, I forget his name. I'll have to look it up here in a second. Go 14:50 at Wingfoot this weekend. And then Footlocker finalist Charles Hicks falls at Katie Capel's Invitational in Jacksonville, beat by Paul Stafford of Lake Wales. Went 15:31, but they came through 2 miles at 9:44, I think.
Yeah.
So they were moving on a pace, and it was a pretty tough course. It's a nice spectator course up there at Katie Capel's and at Bishop Kenny in Jacksonville. But there's a lot of turns and there's a lot of hills, so that is not favorable for runners.
To touch more on the Bishop in Florida and stuff with Paul, Charles was coming off a great cross-country season, but went straight into nationals and straight into track, and then was running some races after track and field. And, but interesting about Paul, his season was an average season. It was good varsity, but it was average, But he took the time over that track season, usually as a base builder, and that summer to really finite his running. Mm-hmm. And he goes from being a 16:30 guy, 16:15 guy, to a 15:20 guy. And it wasn't just he was fine-tuning on how to bring down his time. He was fine-tuning how to race. Obviously me and Dustin, we got to spend some time with him over the summer. And that dude was just on the mark with everything. Eating, sleeping, just every moment of his running was constantly like a chess move for him. And that's why you see big Footlocker nationalists go down, because these guys come out of nowhere finding the exact ways to do what they need to do. And even if it comes down to the finish line, that's where they win the race. They take away those titles from those guys.
Yeah, for sure. Now, that was a preview to the 2A state meet, and even back one weekend now, with some of the fastest guys in Florida. Trevor Foley went 15:20 3 times this year. He went to Louisville and went head-to-head with Dustin Horter, who's ranked number 7 in the Flow 50 and ran 15:20. What do you think you're seeing out of him this season, after going 15:20 off the tails of Dustin Horter at Louisville?
You can go ahead and take it if you like.
Well, I was just going to ask, Trevor Foley, is he the one that ran at Northport this past year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really know, personally, that's my area. I've run that Northport course plenty of times.
Yeah.
It's a good course.
Right.
Yeah, we've run it plenty of times as well, yeah.
That's the thing. Good course. I mean, I know I've seen, a handful of kids on there, like myself included, run some pretty fast times there. And, like, it tends to translate to, how they're going to do at, like, the state level. So, I mean, I would imagine moving forward that, he's probably going to be a favorite, I would say, for sure, almost going away, I think.
Okay. Not to mention he's in 1A.
Well, the thing about him,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Like, he went down to 1A, and that kind of goes back to the, Paul thing. Trevor's running fast time since sophomore year. Paul's just now getting fast. But you look at it, Paul's now taking down national champions, and my only scrutiny towards, Trevor and stuff is that he's not a finisher. He shows up to those state meets and he kind of gasses the tank a little. I remember state last year, I thought he was going to win for sure, blow everybody out of the water.
Yeah, I thought so as well.
Dustin knew at mile 1, looks at me and says, "Nah, man, I think he looks gassed," and he did. He just gassed himself out, and so you got to work on those nerves and stuff, and I think that's a big deal for him. So hopefully, nerves, he can be able to control those and translate those incredibly fast times he has now to race season and state season and national season. He can do what he needs to do, but it'll be interesting to see how he handles it, especially being in 1A, so that should make it just a hair bit easier.
Yeah, and I think going back to that, with nerves, I think more so last year with him being at Fernandez, he was racing all the time, twice a week, every week. By the end of cross-country season, that will catch up to you. Running 2 5Ks a week every week for 9 weeks will catch up with you, and training 700 miles over the summer plus that will catch up to you. And he ran 15:26 a few weeks before the state meet, and his mileage was pretty high this season, from what I understand. So I think this year he's done a better job of managing it, less racing. I don't see anyone taking him in 1A, knock on wood. Anything can really happen at a state race, depending on how it goes out. But in 2A, 2 years ago, in a stacked mile with Caleb Potterworth and plenty of others, he went and won the state championship of the mile and ran 4:18, and no one saw him doing it. So it really goes to show anything can happen in a championship race.
And he won the steeplechase over the summer for AAU.
Yeah, and he's also a steeplechase national champion for the summer.
It's his first race. That's just awesome.
Yeah, it was his first race ever in the steeplechase, and he ran regionals, his first race ever, and ran nationals and won the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
So he definitely has fine-tuned his championship racing, and I know he definitely wants to make Footlocker Nationals. So on to that, Footlocker Nationals. Who are you guys seeing this year going? I see Dustin Horder going, I see McLeod going back, and I see Stafford going, I see Foley going. Who else do you guys have?
I actually am focusing a little on that. You had a big senior class last year, obviously 17 guys that they were possibly saying could break 4. And so you lost a lot of those guys, and I think it made this season seem a little bit less. But if I don't know if he's going to do nationals this year. He may just stick to Nike Cross. But for me, Brody Hasty, dude is going to be an absolute just monster this senior season. He was hanging with all those top guys in their senior season as a junior, running crazy like 8:47s, 8:46s in his 2 mile, getting like right next to the sub-4 mark. And, he's got, I think personally, he's got this season paying down for both cross-country and track and field.
Yeah, I agree. 14:45 2 weeks ago at Adidas for a 5K.
As an unsigned runner because of the whole high school issue. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Tyler, on to you with Footlocker. What was your experience at Footlocker South, and what advice would you have to give to a senior year runner? You came pretty close your senior year, had a pretty good race. What is your advice to anyone trying to qualify leading up to that race on the course?
Is it still the same course?
It is.
Okay. I would say the biggest thing is just getting out fast. You know, if you're not out in the front, in that top 30, you're not really going to have the chance to move up. And that's like, I think that was the big issue that I had, because that was never really, it was not the type of runner that I was. It's still not entirely the type of runner that I am. I'm never the front run type of guy. I'm more of like the strength runner that just waits for everyone else to fall off.
Yeah.
And you can't really do something like that at Footlocker unless you're really, really elite. And I mean, I was good in high school, but you know, some of those kids were just really, really good. And so, I mean, the best strategy that I would say is to just try and go out with that top 30, hang on, and then just slowly work your way up through that top 30 to try and go to that top 10 and make that national race. I mean, you know, like you said, I came relatively close my senior year, but it just didn't end up panning out. My senior cross season wasn't too great. My track season was a lot better. I think, you know, had I tried to go Footlocker Nationals at the end of my track season, I probably would have made it. I mean, I was beating guys, you know, like Nick Diaz and, you know, stuff like that, who were Footlocker finalists during the track season. So
yeah,
I think it would have went a bit different, but, you know, it happened. So
yeah.
I think as we are coming to a close, you know, we always kind of end with just a similar topic conversation, and kind of the point of what, you know, me and Dustin have started, and you know that running is more than just a sport. Whether you're a college athlete, a jogger, or you know, professional Olympian that's been doing it for 30 years, it means more than just being able to go out in the track and compete against people. I think it's a very intrinsical feeling. It pushes you to be a better human being. So with that said, you know, you being a high school runner, you know, being an awesome college D1 athlete, and now, you know, hopefully if you're thinking about it, going professional or semi-pro after, what is running meant to you away from the competitiveness of the sport? How has it made you a better human being, and really where has it affected you in your life most?
Honestly, running has done probably more for me than anything else I've ever done in my life. I mean, running has kind of been my reason that I'm so focused. You know, I started running my freshman year of high school, and, you know, my first cross season, I actually ended up quitting the cross-country team about 3 weeks in. That might be surprising. I was like, man, I can't do this. You know, I'm not made out for running. And then, you know, I came back during track that same year, and I just started running really well. I was like, man, I broke 5 in the mile as a freshman. I thought that was pretty cool. Like, apparently most people don't do that. And I was like, man, this is awesome. And then, you know, I just kept running, and, you know, as you guys might know, like, it transitioned into a much, much bigger thing. I mean, I got, you know, a decent following throughout, like, the state of Florida when I was in high school. My name ended up becoming, you know, pretty big on the circuit while I was in high school, and it transitioned into just a lot of focus, like holding myself to that same standard in other aspects of my life, you know, and that's why I was able to get to a place, you know, Division I college, Ivy League school like Cornell, you know, because I just put that laser focus into, like, everything that I did. You know, that was what I did with my academics, like my ACTs, my SATs, all my advanced placement classes and stuff like that. And, I mean, also, just, I feel like it's a thing for most runners. Like, sometimes you just have a bad day. You just need to go for a run. So, you know, running, it's also just a huge outlet for me, like, as far as just stress goes, and like kind of clearing my mind, and it definitely lets me keep a level head, especially, you know, in a real stressful environment like Cornell, where it's, you know, just tests and everyone's so smart and stuff like that, and all the guys are fast. Like, it's a good thing, good stress release, and it's a real good help to stay focused on just things in general, like other things outside of running even. And I think it's been a huge help in my life just to push me forward and to keep me going.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what, I think you summed up running really well for most athletes our age and just a bit younger. it's a good stress reliever, and it not only pushes you but to be better and make you work harder, but it's your stress reliever in the day, and it helps you to get through school and what you need to do. So that's really with that said, I think we're coming to the close. So me and Dustin are going to come to, we always end with announcements and stuff. By this point, I don't know how many people are still watching, but, hopefully it's enough to see, the preview for next week. So we've reached out to a few athletes. So we've got Justin Knight hopefully coming on as we've been talking back and forth. Me and Dustin have been working on really hard about getting a studio possibly. And then there's some other stuff we've got in the cooking in the oven. We're not going to talk about it too yet. And I believe for the October, not this weekend, but the next coming weekend, during that holiday weekend, I'll be going up to Georgetown, staying with a friend and hopefully being interviewing some of the Georgetown athletes who I'm sure Tyler has seen before.
We'll see him this weekend.
Yeah, I'll see him this weekend.
He'll be seeing me out this weekend. So they're a great D1 team, very, very old team, a lot of roots there. So hopefully I'll be able to get around, talk to some of those guys, and put out some more content for you guys on the channel. With that said, if Dustin has anything else to cover, I'll let him sign us out.
Yeah, one thing, guys, leave comments as to what you'd like us to talk about. We do want to be very viewer interactive, and we've got some ideas for that, whether we have, a panel of athletes on and we'll add one viewer at a time and have a question run through in a time period and have people added in one by one and have that, have a discussion panel for an episode on whatever you guys want to talk about and whatever's current. We'll do that. We're producing it for you guys to watch. So those of you who are watching, it's for you, and anyone that you think might enjoy it, let them know about it, because we honestly are doing this to spread the sport, and the more the sport grows, the better this will get, the better the sport will get, the more competitive we'll get, and the better it'll be for everyone. It's just a beautiful sport, and it's a really self-fulfilling sport of putting work in and getting out what you really do put in. So if you work, you will get out what you put in. And I think that's a great thing about it, and it really just being able to get all aspects of running rather than just doing it yourself, I think, is a phenomenal thing, to be able to, study other runners and, get people's input, because it really will just help you at the end of the day, I think, at least. So whatever you guys want, we're willing to put it in for you. That's what we want to do. So just let us know. Shoot us. We have a Facebook page we put in the description every time. We have our email hooked up to that for our business email for this. We have a Twitter you can message us on. We have an Instagram you can message us on. Those links will all be in the bio. People like Tyler, anyone we have on, feel free to shoot him a message and ask him. Let him know what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. And us, we're open, all ears to any suggestions. We just want to make this better for you guys. So
the more scrutiny, the better.
Yeah, honestly.
All right. So with that said, thank you so much, Tyler, for coming on. It's meant a lot to hear from an athlete, especially, guys, you understand, the Olympic athletes, those athletes, they just train and then they have fun the rest of the day. These college kids, we got studying to do and athletics on top of that. So, we thank Tyler so much because he's taken out a good chunk of the better half of an hour to take a chunk out of his day for us. So we're very appreciative. We thank you so much. And we hope that you keep just bringing home golds for Cornell and that we'll have you on here as an Olympian one day. So,
hey, I hope so. It'd be great to come back after the season or something. But thanks for having me on, and I'll stay in touch. Hopefully I'll be back.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks, guys. Be back for episode 5.